Retrospec's newest inflatable paddleboard, the Weekender Tour XL, offers some really unique options for paddlers. I always felt the original Weekender Tour was more of an all-around paddleboard than a dedicated touring sup, and so this new Tour XL model is designed with a little bit more of that touring DNA, but still very accessible to beginner paddlers. The Weekender Tour XL uses Retrospec's higher-end Air Glide Fusion dual-layer construction. The 6-inch knitted drop stitch core is bonded with 2 layers of Fusion PVC fabric to give it more rigidity and durability compared to their lighter weight build. The top and bottom of the board are joined together by gluing on a reinforced strip of PVC around the rail edge, and then an outer rail layer is glued on top of that for additional durability. Rather than choosing a traditional 30-inch or narrower width, the Tour XL is 32 inches wide, but is 12.5 feet long, combining the stability of an all-around with the glide of a touring board. In our rigidity test, the Tour XL had just a 1.8-inch bend with 170 pounds of weight. That's just a little bit more than our current running average of 1.6 inches, but it's well within the typical range that we see on dual-layer 32-inch wide inflatable paddleboards. Now on the water, I didn't notice any flexing or bending while standing on the board or paddling normally. I could generate a fair amount of flex while jumping and bouncing on the Tour XL, and I could feel it flexing more as I was paddling hard for a speed test, but this level of rigidity is right on par with what we expect for this construction type and size. The Tour XL has the same basic but very usable set of core features as the original Weekender Tour. There are 2 large cargo bungees for tying down everything that you need for the day or even a weekend trip. The EVA foam deck pad covers about 3/4 of the length of the board and has a raised kick pad at the tail of the board. There are 3 carrying handles and an integrated GoPro action mount at the nose of the board. On the sides of the board, Retrospec has included their Easy Link system for attaching their kayak seat or their shoulder sling, as well as Velcro tabs for attaching a spare paddle. There are 3 slide-in fin boxes, although for a touring board, you typically only need the 1 center fin. The Weekender Tour XL comes with a complete kit of accessories, including a nylon backpack, a hand pump, 3 fins, a coiled ankle leash, a repair kit, a waterproof phone bag, and their aluminum nylon paddle. The aluminum paddle does have a lot of very user-friendly features that help you orient the paddle correctly, but it is rather heavy, and aluminum paddles have a tendency to bend if they're being used to paddle either heavier loads or at faster paces, or if they just get accidentally stepped on or bent during transportation and storage. Now, one thing that sets the Weekender Tour XL apart from a lot of touring boards is its width. At 32 inches wide, the Weekender Tour XL is actually extremely stable for a touring paddleboard, and it feels more like an extra stable all-around board thanks to the extra width. That extra stability also makes it beginner-friendly, so if you are new to paddleboarding but already plan to be paddling some distance, the Tour XL is a good option. It also helps increase the overall weight capacity of the board compared to a traditional 30-inch touring board, which makes it a little bit easier to pack up and go for a longer trip without needing to go out and buy super expensive ultralight camping equipment. With the extra length of the Weekender XL, I did find that it paddled at higher speeds a little bit easier than the original Weekender Tour, but that 32-inch width does kind of hold it back, especially at the slower cadences. In a sprint, I was able to keep up a 5-mile-per-hour pace and was able to hit a maximum of 5.6 miles per hour for very short distances. At a more casual cruising pace, again, just like the Weekender Tour, I was only able to travel an average of about 3.2 to 3.3 miles per hour. There was a little bit more glide overall in the Weekender Tour XL, giving us 1.8 board lengths per stroke versus the Tour's 1.7 board lengths per stroke. And that does bring us more in line with a traditional touring board. While that extra length does help increase the speed and efficiency, it also makes it far more difficult to turn. It took an average of 9.5 forward sweep strokes, paddling in a full arc from nose to tail, to turn the Tour XL in a full 360-degree circle. Now, it's not the most agile board that we've ever used, but compared to some other touring boards, it actually does turn fairly quick. So if you are looking for a touring length board that is still maneuverable, then this does give you those options. In our tracking test, the Tour XL deviated an average of just 8 degrees off course after 10 strokes on a single side. That's much better than the original Weekender Tour and does put it right in line at the lower end of the spectrum for dedicated touring paddleboards. And of course, that 3-fin setup allows you to adjust the maneuverability and tracking performance using all 3 fins for maximum tracking, just the center fin for a balanced feel, or just the 2 side fins for a highly maneuverable and playful feel on the water or for paddling in shallow rivers. Overall, I really like the Weekender Tour XL. I feel that Retrospec has filled a very interesting niche here with this paddleboard. Instead of going with a narrower design to optimize speed over everything else, the Weekender Tour XL is more approachable, especially for newer paddlers, and it does make the overall paddling experience a little bit more comfortable thanks to its extra stability and gives you the option to pack more things on the board at once. Retrospec has done a great job of designing this board and kit and delivering it at a very reasonable price. When you factor in the sub $500 price point for the complete kit, the Weekender Tour XL has a lot to offer for paddlers looking for a little bit more distance in their paddling without going for a highly specialized touring paddleboard.